Americans are dropping $20,000 on motorcycles that sit in garages 9 months a year. Meanwhile, there is a $2,000 bike that has been conquering Africa's toughest roads for 2 decades. Most of you have never heard of it. The bike is the Bajaj Boxer, a $2,000 workhorse that dominates Africa, and that explains why Indian motorcycles quietly crushed everyone else. India dominated an entire continent while Harley and Honda watched. They already destroyed American brands in the harshest place on earth. Now, they are coming for the American market. Let's talk about what you are actually paying for. The average new Harley costs $20,000. A Honda Africa Twin costs $14,500. A BMW GS costs $25,000. And here is what dealerships do not mention when you sign the paperwork. Most Americans finance these bikes. You're looking at 5 to 7 years of monthly payments for a machine you ride on weekends, maybe. Then there's maintenance. Harley wants to see you every 5,000 miles. Parts are expensive. Labor is worse. You're bleeding money just to keep the thing running. Chinese manufacturers saw this gap and flooded the market. I'm not talking about newer brands like CF Moto that are actually improving. I'm talking about Amazon dropship specials, Hawks, Toes, Coleman bikes that show up in a crate with instructions in broken English. These things cost $1,500, but the metal is soft, the wiring fails, and within a year you are shopping again. So, Americans are stuck in this trap. Overpay for premium bikes you barely use, or gamble on junk that does not last. But there is a third option nobody talks about. It costs $2,000. It lasts 20 years. It has already proven itself in conditions that would destroy your Harley in a week. The problem is brand perception. Americans think expensive equals quality. We see a $2,000 bike and assume it is garbage. The rest of the world judges by one metric. Does it work? By that standard, these Indian bikes are some of the best ever made. Look at the actual math over 5 years. A Harley Street 750 costs $8,000 up front. Insurance runs $600 a year. That is $3,000 total. Maintenance costs $500 annually. Another $2,500. That brings you to $13,500 total cost of ownership. Compare that to a Bajaj Boxer. Purchase price $2,000. Insurance $200 a year. That is $1,000 over 5 years. Maintenance $150 yearly. That is $750. Total cost $3,750. That is nearly $10,000 in savings. That is a used car. That is a house down payment in some markets. That is real money you are lighting on fire because you think the badge matters more than the bike. And before you tell me Chinese bikes are the same price, they are not. Many low-end Chinese bikes fail early under constant abuse. There is a reason African riders call cheap Chinese motorcycles one-year bikes. After a year, most are done. Yes, some Chinese engines are improving, but Africa does not run $6,000 CF Moto models. It runs the cheapest bikes that survive. Indian bikes are still running taxi routes at well over 155,000 miles. The worst part is, you do not even need the expensive bike for what you are actually doing. 80% of American motorcycle trips are under 10 miles. Commuting, errands, weekend trail rides, local cruising. You are not crossing continents. You are not racing. You are riding to work and back. These bikes are not for 80 miles per hour freeway touring. They are for commuting, back roads, trails, and daily use, how most bikes are actually ridden. For that kind of riding, a $2,000 to $5,000 Indian bike gets the job done, and you are not making payments for 7 years. To understand why this matters, you need to see where these bikes actually get tested. Not some controlled track in Germany. Not smooth American highways. Real-world hell. These are roads that turn into rivers during rainy season. Dust so thick it chokes air filters in hours. Temperatures swinging from 40 degrees Celsius during the day to near freezing at night. Potholes deep enough to swallow your front wheel whole. No dealerships for hundreds of miles. No fancy diagnostic tools. No computer to plug in and read error codes. If your bike breaks down out there, you're fixing it yourself with basic tools, or you are walking. This is why Africa became the proving ground. It does not lie. It does not care about your brand loyalty or marketing budgets. Too expensive? American bikes? When they break, parts take months to arrive, if they arrive at all. Harley-Davidson actually tried cracking the African market in the early 2000s with the Street 500. They thought a smaller, cheaper Harley would work. It failed completely. Harleys are not bad bikes. They are built for smooth roads, dealer networks, and premium fuel. Africa has none of that. The suspension was too soft for rough roads. The belt drive could not handle the dust. Fuel mapping was designed for premium gas that did not exist in most regions. Within 3 years, Harley quietly pulled out. The bikes that stayed behind are rusting in junkyards right now. Chinese bikes? Many break within the first year. Rwandan riders have a name for cheap Chinese motorcycles. 1-year bikes. Because after a year, most are done. The frames crack, the engines seize, the electrical systems fail. You are walking. So what happened? African riders found something better. They found bikes that cost less than Chinese junk, but lasted longer than American premium. They found Indian motorcycles. If you are still thinking cheap equals bad, the next part explains why that mindset is costing Americans thousands. This is not theory. In large parts of Africa, motorcycles are not toys. They are income. If a bike does not start every morning, the rider does not eat. That is why these bikes get filtered out fast. Anything unreliable disappears from the streets within months. The only machines that survive are the ones that can take constant abuse, bad fuel, overloaded cargo, and non-stop riding. That is how bikes like the Bajaj Boxer earn their reputation. Not through reviews, not through marketing, through daily survival. When a machine racks up hundreds of thousands of kilometers running taxi routes, it is not luck, it is design. Africa does not reward branding. It rewards uptime. Bajaj, Hero, TVS, Royal Enfield. These are not household names in America, but in Africa they own well over half of the entire motorcycle market. And there is a reason for that dominance. These bikes are built for the worst-case scenario. Reinforced frames that do not crack when you hit a pothole at speed. Heavy-duty chains that handle abuse. Engines designed to run on low-quality fuel because that is all you get in rural Africa. Air filters that are oversized and washable, designed for dust storms, not Instagram photos. Oil changes are simple. Clutch cables are designed to be field replaceable. No proprietary tools required. No dealership visit needed. Any shade tree mechanic can fix these bikes with basic hand tools. Mechanics in Nairobi are running Bajaj Boxers with well over 250,000 kilometers on them. That is 155,000 miles on a $1,500 motorcycle. Original engine. Still running daily taxi routes. Show me a Chinese bike that does that. Show me a Harley that survives that kind of abuse without a complete rebuild. In those same African conditions, dust, heat, bad roads, long distances between services, Indian bikes keep running. If they can handle the Congo, they can handle rural Texas or Montana. 4 reasons why Indian bikes dominate. Enter India. Bajaj, Hero, TVS, Royal Enfield. These brands own half the African motorcycle market for 4 specific reasons. And every single one of these reasons matters to American riders, whether you realize it or not. Reason 1. Price that actually makes sense. A Bajaj Boxer costs $1,500 to $2,000 depending on the market. Hero Splendor runs $1,200 to $1,800. Compare that to a Honda CRF 250L at $5,500 or a Harley Street 500 at $7,000. That is not a small difference. That is life-changing money in most of the world. That is the difference between owning a bike and making payments until you are too old to ride it. Reason 2. Simplicity equals reliability. Indian bikes are designed with one principle: keep it simple. Air-cooled engines, carburetors instead of fuel injection, minimal electronics, steel frames. American riders hear this and think outdated. That is the wrong way to think about it. Simplicity equals reliability in the field. When your fuel injection system fails 200 miles from civilization, you need a computer to diagnose it. You need proprietary software. You need a dealership. When your carburetor acts up, you clean it with a screwdriver and compressed air. That is it. No sensors failing, no software updates bricking your engine control unit. No proprietary diagnostic tools that cost $3,000, just basic mechanics that any competent rider can handle. You can fix these bikes on the side of the road with a basic toolkit. Try doing that with your throttle-by-wire system when the sensor goes bad. Reason 3. Built for abuse from day one. Indian manufacturers engineer these bikes assuming you are going to destroy them. They design for the worst-case scenario because that is the reality of their primary markets. Reinforced frames handle impacts. Heavy-duty chains do not snap under load. Engines run on whatever fuel you can find, even if it is contaminated. The air filters are oversized and washable. They are designed for dust storms, not clean California air. Oil changes are straightforward with no special procedures. Clutch cables are built to be replaced in the field without removing half the bike. I have seen Bajaj Boxers in Nairobi with well over 250,000 kilometers still running daily taxi routes. That is over 155,000 miles on a $1,500 motorcycle. Original engine. No major rebuilds. Just regular maintenance and parts replacement as things wear out. Show me any Chinese bike that does that. Show me any American bike that survives that kind of daily abuse without costing more in repairs than the original purchase price. Reason 4. Parts availability that actually works. This is the genius move that American brands never figured out. Indian manufacturers flooded Africa with parts. Every major city, every town, you can find Bajaj, Hero, or TVS parts within 50 kilometers. Walk into any motorcycle shop and they have what you need in stock. Chinese brands? Parts availability is a nightmare. You are ordering from questionable suppliers with no quality control. Wait times are unpredictable. Half the time, the parts do not fit right because the factory changed the specs without updating the part numbers. Harley? Forget it. You are ordering from the United States and waiting months. Then paying international shipping. Then hoping customs does not hold it up. Then discovering the part costs 3 times what the local mechanic charges for labor. Indian manufacturers understood something American brands did not. The sale is not the end of the relationship. It is the beginning. If riders cannot get parts, they will not buy your bikes. So they made sure parts were everywhere, cheap and readily available. That is why Indian bikes dominate. Not because of marketing budgets or brand prestige, because they work, because they are affordable, because when they break, you can fix them, and because they do not break nearly as often as the alternatives. If you think Indian manufacturing is sketchy, here is what Western brands already know. KTM, Duke, 200, 250, and 390 are built by Bajaj in India. Harley-Davidson X440 is built by Hero in India. Triumph Speed 400 and Scrambler 400X are built in India. The biggest motorcycle brands in the world already trust Indian factories to build their bikes. They are not just assembling them there, they are engineering them there, designing them there, testing them there. These are not knockoffs or license-built copies. These are genuine KTM, genuine Harleys, genuine Triumphs coming out of Indian factories. Why? Because Indian manufacturers have the engineering expertise, the quality control, and the production capacity to build motorcycles that meet Western standards. They have been doing it for decades. They have proven they can build bikes that last. Harley would not trust Hero with their brand if the quality was not there. KTM would not partner with Bajaj if the engineering was not solid. Triumph would not build their new small displacement lineup in India if they had any doubts about reliability. American consumers just have not caught up yet. We are still stuck in this outdated mindset that anything not made in America or Japan must be inferior. Meanwhile, the brands we worship are quietly moving production to India because the quality is there and the price makes sense. Look at the actual market data. In East African markets like Kenya, Indian brands dominate with well over 60% market share. In West Africa, the story is similar. Hero and Bajaj combined sell hundreds of thousands of units annually across African markets. Compare that to Harley-Davidson's US sales. They have been declining to around 150,000 to 160,000 units sold domestically in recent years in their home market. With decades of brand loyalty and massive marketing budgets, Indian brands are outselling Harley in Africa by a factor of 4 to 1. That is not a fluke. That is not luck. That is riders making rational decisions based on what actually works. They are choosing bikes that cost less, last longer, and can be fixed anywhere. They are choosing Indian motorcycles because the math works and the bikes work. The cost comparison over 5 years is not even close. We already covered the Harley Street 750 hitting $13,500 total cost versus the Bajaj Boxer at $3,750. That is nearly $10,000 in savings. But it is not just about the money you save. It is about what you get for that money. With the Harley, you get a bike that needs dealer service every 5,000 miles. You get expensive parts that take weeks to arrive. You get a machine that is designed for smooth American roads and struggles when conditions get rough. With the Indian bike, you get a machine that's designed to survive the worst roads on earth. You get parts availability that actually works. You get a bike you can fix yourself without proprietary tools or dealer software. You get reliability that has been proven over millions of miles in the harshest conditions imaginable. Are Indian bikes perfect? No. They are slower, they are basic, and they will not impress anyone at bike night. But that is not the job. Here is the reality. Most American riders do not need a $20 million motorcycle. They need something that starts every time, runs on cheap fuel, survives bad roads, and does not turn ownership into a financial commitment. For commuting, errands, back roads, trail riding, and first bike ownership, which covers most riding, these bikes already do the job. Now, here is the uncomfortable part. Why Americans ignore something that clearly works. So here is the question. If these bikes are so good, why are Americans not buying them? There are 3 reasons, and every one of them is stupid. Reason 1 is brand perception. Americans equate expensive with quality. We have been trained by decades of marketing to think that if something costs more, it must be better. We see a $2,000 bike and automatically assume it is cheap garbage. But that is not how the rest of the world thinks. They judge bikes by one metric. Does it work? Can I fix it when it breaks? Will it still be running in 5 years? By those standards, Indian bikes are some of the best ever made. The problem is, we are judging based on badge prestige instead of actual performance. We would rather make payments on a $20,000 bike that sits in the garage than own outright a $2,000 bike that runs every single day. That is not smart. That is ego. Reason 2 is marketing. Harley spends millions on marketing. You see their commercials during the Super Bowl. You see them sponsoring events. You see them everywhere. Indian brands spend almost nothing on marketing in the United States. You do not see Bajaj commercials during football games. You do not see Hero sponsoring MotoGP races. So Americans simply do not know these brands exist, and they remain unknown to most riders. We do not know what we are missing because nobody is telling us about it. Motorcycle magazines are not covering them. YouTube channels are not reviewing them. Dealerships are not stocking them. Out of sight, out of mind. Reason 3 is dealership networks. Until recently, you could not buy most of these bikes in the US, even if you wanted to. There was no distribution, no parts network, no service support. You were on your own. But that is changing right now. Royal Enfield, India's oldest motorcycle brand, now has over 120 US dealerships. Their Himalayan 450 uses the same formula that conquered Africa, and it is available in America for $5,799. It is a 450 cubic centimeter, 40 horsepower, liquid-cooled single designed for adventure riding. Simple, reliable, affordable. You are not taking a 125 cubic centimeter Bajaj on the interstate at 75 miles per hour. That is not what these smaller bikes are built for. But here's the thing. 80% of American motorcycle trips are under 10 miles, commuting, errands, weekend trail rides, local cruising. Think about how you actually use your motorcycle. An Indian 150 cubic centimeter bike gets 80+ miles per gallon. Weekend rides stay reliable and cheap to maintain. Adventure riding is already proven on African trails that make Moab look like a parking lot. First bike riders get low cost, easy to learn machines that are nearly impossible to destroy. For that kind of riding, which is most riding, a $2,000 to $5,000 Indian bike gets the job done. And you are not making payments for 7 years. You own it outright. No interest, no financing, no stress about missing a payment. Here's what is happening right now. Royal Enfield is expanding across the US. Hero is exploring the American market. Bajaj is in talks with distributors. Within 5 years, Indian bikes will have a meaningful share of the US budget motorcycle market. Why? Because the same thing that happened in Africa is starting to happen here. Americans are realizing they do not need a $20,000 bike. They need a bike that works. Right now, in 2025, you can get a Royal Enfield under $6,000. But once every motorcycle magazine discovers these bikes, once the used market floods with them, prices will climb. Right now, these bikes are cheap because Americans ignore them. That will not last. Every market that wakes up sees prices rise. This is your window. Look, I'm not saying sell your Harley if you love it. Keep it. But if you are a new rider, or you are looking for a commuter, or you want an adventure bike that will not bankrupt you, do not sleep on Indian motorcycles. Africa figured this out 20 years ago. The rest of the world is catching up. The question is, will America catch up before we have all financed ourselves into retirement making payments on bikes we barely ride? The math does not lie. Nearly $10,000 in savings over 5 years. If this bike had a Harley badge, would you still ignore it? Be honest. Drop a comment and let me know. Hit subscribe so we can keep exposing what the industry won't tell you.